So we have a serious crisis happening right now in the Middle East as the fighting between Iran and Israel keeps ramping up. Trump just canceled his G7 meetings, and now he's on his way back to DC to take meetings on this stuff. And basically, he told people in Tehran to evacuate immediately. I feels like that he's trying to drag the USA further into war with Iran and Israel, and I'm quite concerned about these things. That's why we're going over it. Not everyone is on board with jumping into this war so quickly. In fact, there's a representative here, Thomas Massie from Kentucky, a Republican, who's saying, hey, this is not our war. I want to read it. And he says here, this is not our war, but if it were, Congress must decide such matters according to our Constitution. I'm introducing a bipartisan war powers resolution tomorrow to prohibit our involvement. I invite all members of Congress to co-sponsor this resolution. And a really important thing when you do with this stuff is then you get people on record. Were you for going into the war or not? This whole situation right now feels very similar to what happened in Iraq, where we basically lied into war. Oh, Saddam's going to have the nuclear, bomb, and look out, we got to attack right now. And basically, our intel's been saying that Iran's not that close to a nuclear weapon. However, Israel and Netanyahu, they're like, oh, they're really, really close. We got to attack right now. And so that's for you to decide who to believe. I'm going to go with Massie on this one. I don't trust Trump. I don't trust Netanyahu. And that's where we're at. And it feels like Trump's trying to drag us into this thing. This is what we have right now. It says Pentagon expands Middle East to response as Israel-Iran trade strikes. Basically, we're sending all sorts of military assets into the Middle East. I'll go over some of the details of that stuff in a moment here. But it's really, really ugly. There is a peace deal on the table, I guess. This says here, Iran-Israel ceasefire offer has been made, says Macron, as Trump exits G7 summit early. So, I mean, it's hard to say. This is happening right now. Can they come to some sort of resolution to stop the fighting, or are we going to drag troops into there, or are the U.S. troops going to end up being peacekeeping troops, these kind of things? In this situation, it looks like Israel's basically escalated the fighting, and then now they expect the USA to do the cleanup duty. It is a messy situation. I don't want to be involved. And then I've already seen it. You have people on the right saying, oh, well, just because you don't want to be involved in the war, then you just must be an awful, awful, evil person siding with the enemy. They'll say this kind of stuff. And I'll show you, they will. It's kind of crazy. Like, I think the vast majority of us just want to live our lives in peace and not get involved with this stuff. And there's certain people out there, be it the Trumps and Netanyahu's, that just want to drag us into war. You have this was an interesting one. This is coming from the New York Times. So this would be sort of on the, I'll say the rumor mill, because they didn't put it as a report, they put it as analysis. And I'll read it wide and you'll see what I'm saying. It says here, President Trump is weighing a critical decision in the fourth day old war between Israel and Iran, whether to enter the fray by helping Israel destroy deeply buried a nuclear enrichment facility at Fordo, which only America's biggest bunker buster drop by the American B-2 bombers can reach, right? So this is more of the rumor mill. So I can't verify this report. I'm just saying, so basically Israel sounds like they're asking Trump, hey, would you use the B-2s? Can we get the bunker busters in there? And then that's basically direct involvement of the USA. So that's probably why Trump left, if this thing is true. And I want to make this clear. So this one was not as a report in New York Times. It was done in an analysis way. So that's how it is. So what are we sending to the Middle East? I have it right here. It says the Pentagon is expanding its military presence in the Middle East and Europe in response to worsening hostilities. Okay. So what are we sending? We're sending refueling planes and additional aircraft carrier among the resources dispatched. So another carrier and refueling planes. More than a dozen tanker planes were deployed from the United States to Europe on Sunday and Monday, so they're on their way to the Middle East. A movement that U.S. officials linked to commanders' desire for options should American facilities near the warring countries face a direct threat, right? So the rumor is that Trump wants to use the B-2s. We're sending our refueling, planes to do that. We're sending a carrier group. I guess we're also sending, it says here, KC-135 Strato tankers and the KC-45 Pegasus. And then we're saying the carrier one is the Nimitz. This is the Navy, meanwhile, has canceled a port stop in Vietnam for the USS Nimitz, sending that aircraft carrier and other warships, I mean, a whole carrier group, to the Middle East. So 5,000 sailors and dozens of fighter jets. That's not what I want to see, and that's why I mentioned the Massie thing. Not everyone is necessarily on board with dragging us in there as quickly as possible. Macron was saying here that a ceasefire is on the table. Here's the quote from Macron. Says there is indeed an offer to meet and exchange. An offer has been was made especially to get a ceasefire and to kickstart broader discussions. That's from Macron. We have to see now whether the sides will follow. So we'll see. On top of that, you also have this. I mean, this is kind of the people you're dealing with Israel. 5 Palestinians waiting for aid shot dead by Israeli troops. That's coming from a Palestinian media report. That's just a couple minutes ago. And guys, I get it. I get it more than you know. If you look at right-wing social media, they'll say, "Oh, Massie," that's the representative who's saying, "Don't get involved." You say, "This is not our war." They'll say, "What happens if they nuke Kentucky? Would you still feel the same way?" And Massie actually had an appropriate response. He basically tweets out a picture. Well, this is the range of Iran's missiles, right? I don't see Kentucky on that map. I don't see USA on that map, and that's a good response there. And again, I mentioned this before. The intel from Israel is just saying, "Oh, we got to attack right now," but U.S. intel, world intel is not saying that. So it's just Israel saying that. And remember, Netanyahu's poll numbers are sagging, Trump's poll numbers are sagging, and this looks to be basically for political motivations. That's what it looks like to me. So I personally don't want to get dragging this stuff, and I'm just giving you my opinion on these things. I'm not alone. AOC also says she's signing on, meaning I don't want to jump into this fight either. You have another representative, Rashida Tlaib, is also saying this. "I look forward to supporting this war powers resolution. The American people aren't falling for it again. We were lied to about, quote, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that killed millions and forever changed lives." I want to mention the Massie stuff because for many politicians, just be honest with you guys, like the Trump people, they're frankly just greedy. They're just greedy. You give them money, they'll say, "Oh, crypto. Oh, hotels. Oh, golf courses. Oh, I'll take that money and I can build everything that I want," and they'll promote whatever policy. Massey's no dummy. You can look it up. It's on his website. He's an undergrad from MIT. He's got a master's from MIT. He's no dummy. And so, you do have Republicans on, this is a Republican. You do have Republicans who aren't dummies, but they're just, greed overrides their intelligence. But this particular person, honestly, it sounds like he just wants to keep the USA out of this stuff, learning from the past. He also gave an interview recently, which I think was really telling, talking about APAC money. And if you guys know about this stuff, it's basically a lobbying group that buys politicians on both sides of the aisle and tries to get people to, go into pro-Israel type of things, basically support Israel no matter what, send them weapons no matter what, that kind of stuff. Not everyone is on board with that. And we're going to find out if Massie can bring his resolution and see who votes for it and who doesn't. It is a very deeply concerning thing because from the right, and I just want to show you guys the Lara Loomer kind of stuff, and you probably heard of this. He's a right-winger, Twitter, YouTuber type person. She's basically saying if you're against going to war, then you must be an Iranian spy, and she's been literally tweeting that stuff out the last couple of hours. So that's the rumor mill they're going to try to go with. And I mentioned the Massie stuff because it was really quite interesting. A recent interview, he also said that APAC will sort of give money and run campaigns in American churches to sort of get the evangelical, Christians in the USA to support Israel in any number of ways. For real. And I mean, I'm sure you guys kind of know this stuff, but to hear him talk about it was fascinating. And then he mentioned when he was running for office, APAC approached him and said, "Hey, can you write an essay for me?" And there's like, "I don't want to write an essay. Why would I want to, do homework for you?" And they're like, "Well, you can even copy Rand Paul's version. Just put your name on it." He's like, "I know, I'm not doing that." And the basic gist of it is that, that particular essay thing, where policy paper isn't that important at that time. They just want to see if you follow their instructions, if you just sign off on board. And if you, aren't on their team, then they start buying campaign ads against you. And so it's really quite interesting when you look at what interest do we have in, attacking Iran directly or putting American troops on the ground and, occupying, nation building, this kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of this comes from lobbying, guys, and you get dragged into this stuff. And unfortunately, you have a lot of Americans out there who are frankly really gullible and they're taken in by greedy politicians. I just want to make it really clear. And it's sad to see. Look this up. It's all public. This is all public stuff, right? This isn't some, crazy conspiracy theory stuff. It's all public. This is the APAC PAC. It's all websites. You can see which parties they give money to. And like right on the front page, they got Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries. So it's basically both sides. It's right there. You can find it for yourself. And if you go against them, so for example, Bernie Sanders mentions it, again, they'll buy campaign ads against you. They'll say, "Oh, you're just a traitor. You're an Iranian spy," that kind of stuff. It's complete nonsense. There's a lot of us out there, guys. And I would say the vast majority of us, don't want to get involved in a lot of fighting. But there are certainly segments of population who are really gullible, and they'll say, oh, Iraq's going to attack you. Get ready. Or, they're coming, right? And Iran's going to come get you. And you get these people worried in Kentucky and Tennessee and Florida. Oh, I'm so worried, And seriously. And I actually read in comments, people actually write that. They'll say, well, Chris, I don't like Trump, but I'm really worried about Iran coming to get me. Really, people actually write that stuff. And that's, again, it's a part of a political campaign. And so I put all this stuff on screen. Please look it up for yourself. I encourage you, because, what I'm trying to do is getting you guys to think in a different type of way that you may have never thought about before, because they don't talk about this stuff on TV and things like that for obvious reasons. For example, it says here, Bernie Sanders, Democrats, quote, not speaking up on Gaza due to fear of pro-Israel lobby, right? So there's a lot of money out there that will tarnish your name if you speak up on this stuff. This is what Bernie says. He says, I happen to believe what is going on in Gaza is horrific, that we are seeing children right now as we speak starving to death. But why do you think more Democrats are not speaking up on that issue? If you speak up on that issue, you'll have super PACs like Apac going after you in the same way Elon Musk goes after Republicans. So basically, that's how U.S. politics works. If you speak, out on certain issues, you'll get attacked, right? So trying to block arms to Israel, Bernie Sanders denounces AIPAC's massive election spending. And this is what it's all about, guys. It's about money. It's about spending. It's about power. Not every politician, is on board with this stuff. You can, check this out. This is a website that says Reject AIPAC. There are, several Congress people who don't take money from AIPAC. Some of the more, like AOC, more notable ones are on here. Cori Bush, etc. And you can see there's Bernie Sanders on this list, and there's Rashida also is on that as well. So I'm, with the representative here from Kentucky on this one. Just because, someone's a Republican doesn't mean I hate all Republicans. Like, I think Thomas is a smart guy, and I think he has the USA's, interests at heart here. This is not our war, but if it were, Congress must decide such matters according to our Constitution. I'm introducing a bipartisan war powers resolution tomorrow to prohibit our involvement. I invite all members of Congress to co-sponsor this resolution. So please keep track of this one. We'll see what happens, and you'll have it on record, right? Who voted for it, who didn't. I don't want to get dragged into a war against Iran. I don't want to be essentially, Israel's big brother to come clean up their mess and pay for the rebuilding of everything. And I don't want to be part of the Donald Trump, Iran casino and Gaza Plaza. That's what he's planning. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll catch you on the next video.